Chapter 5. Hear ye this, O priests, and hearken, ye house of Israel, and give ye ear, O house of the king, for judgment is towards you, because ye have been a snare on Mizpah, and a net spread upon Tabor. And the revolters are profound to make slaughter, though I have been a rebuker of them all. I know Ephraim, and Israel is not hid from me. For now, O Ephraim, thou committest whoredom, and Israel is defiled. They will not frame their doings to turn unto their God, for the spirit of whoredoms is in the midst of them, and they have not known the Lord. And the pride of Israel doth testify to his face, therefore shall Israel and Ephraim fall in their iniquity. Judah also shall fall with them. They shall go with their flocks and with their herds to seek the Lord, but they shall not find him. He hath withdrawn himself from them. They have dealt treacherously against the Lord, for they have begotten strange children. Now shall a month devour them with their portions. Blow ye the cornet in Gibeah, and the trumpet in Ramah. Cry aloud at Bethaven after thee, O Benjamin. Ephraim shall be desolate in the day of rebuke. Among the tribes of Israel have I made known that which shall surely be. The princes of Judah were like them that remove the bound. Therefore I will pour out my wrath upon them like water. Ephraim is oppressed and broken in judgment, because he willingly walked after the commandment. Therefore will I be unto Ephraim as a moth, and to the house of Judah as rottenness. When Ephraim saw his sickness, and Judah saw his wound, then went Ephraim to the Assyrian, and sent to King Jareb. Yet could he not heal you, nor cure you of your wound. For I will be unto Ephraim as a lion, as a young lion to the house of Judah. Even I will tear and go away. I will take away, and none shall rescue him. I will go and return to my place, till they acknowledge their offense, and seek my face in their affliction. They will seek me early. In verses 1 to 2, it talks about nets and snares, and also talks about Mizpah and Tabor. Now, Mizpah and Tabor were known to be very famous and very productive places to go hunting. But in those days, of course, there were no guns. People didn't have really good bows for hunting with, and so they hunted with nets and pits. And they talk about spreading out the nets and digging, and when it talks about snares, that's basically one of the things they're talking about that was very often used, was to dig a pit and then to camouflage it. And then you had people that he's referring to here as revolters, who would surround an area where the pit was at sort of the end of the area, and they would drive the animals towards the pit, making noise and whatever else they wanted to do. And that was how they hunted. Now, the concept here is that the kings, the rulers, the princes, the priests were like the revolters. They were hunters, in essence, and the people of the tribes were their prey. And so these people were driving the people towards the unrighteousness of the pit, Satan's pit, and driving the people that were entrusted to them to lead and to serve, and taking advantage of them as though they were a game animal to be hunted. It's very, very great condemnation of the leaders and princes and priests of Israel. Talks in verse 7 about strange children. And what this basically means is this: Israel, if Israel was righteous and the parents in Israel had been righteous, they would have raised up a nation of children who, to become adults, who would have known God and would have worshipped God. But because the adults worshipped idols, I mean, they had shrines in their own houses, they sacrificed some of their own babies and children to these idols. Because of this, they raised up a nation of idol worshippers, more committed to worshiping idols than even their parents were. And so what the Lord is saying here is, he does not want to acknowledge these people as his own because they don't even recognize that he exists. Now, in verses 10 and 11, it talks about removing the bounds. What it's talking about here is removing the landmarks. Now, there were no fences in Israel. Well, there weren't any trees, largely, to make fences out of. They didn't have wire, they didn't have rope to the same extent that we have today. And so fences were few and far between. So what you had to mark a field were piles of stones at the corners. And these were the landmarks, or the bounds. And if you moved the landmarks, you were considered to be there. It was a horrible curse on you to do that, because it was no different than stealing a man's land. I mean, if you moved the landmarks and you put another, say 25 or 50 feet or 25 or 50 yards and made your field bigger, the only way you could do that was stealing the field of the guy next to you. And so these landmarks were considered almost a sacred thing that needed to be there. And the condemnation of the princes and the priests in Israel, and the reason that they were so strongly condemned by the Lord, is because, not because they moved the landmarks, although some of them did that, but because they moved the spiritual boundaries and the spiritual landmarks and the spiritual guidelines, and for their own profit and their own power and their own gratification, they turned Israel from worshiping God to worshiping idols. Now, if the condemnation was so extraordinarily hard and heavy on a man who simply moved the landmarks and stole somebody's property, what kind of condemnation did the people deserve who turned the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, to serving false gods, to idolatry, to moral corruption and spiritual harlotry and spiritual adultery?